My best friend Katie. She's living in Canada for a year, so she's working really hard.
Our son, Phil, he's travelling all around the world.
Parents, back home in Italy, see the resemblance?
I couldn't believe how much I was spending on long-distance calls.
Anyway, our phone bill went right through the roof.
We like to talk. But my phone bill was unbelievable.
Then a friend said, why don't you try One.Tel?
So we did.
It's not like you need to switch telephone companies. No paperwork. Just one phone call.
They're like so cheap. It's awesome.
The first time I've seen him open a bill and actually smile.
I dial 1478, then I relax because I'm getting One.Tel's cheap rates.
You tell your friends about One.Tel.
Story the Packer and Murdoch media empires won't tell. How young Lachlan and James have lost Aussie battlers a fortune.
You can join forces all you like, but not when you then have to go to some poor pensioner somewhere and say, hey guys, how would you like to buy a few pieces of paper?
How the so-called whiz kids got sucked in by the old school tie. Hello, I'm Naomi Robson. But first, the One.Tel collapse, and the Murdoch and Packer families won't like this story, and you won't read about it in the Murdoch press or see it on the Packer television network. James Packer and Lachlan Murdoch have been pointing the finger at One.Tel whiz kids Jody Rich and Brad Keeling and crying foul. They claim they've been profoundly misled. But that's little consolation to the tens of thousands of Aussie battlers who lost their money when the telephone company collapsed. As Norm Beeman reports, it may be convenient, but it's not that easy to shift the blame.
The elite Cranbrook Boys' School is a who's who of who's privileged in Australia. The school in Sydney's exclusive eastern suburbs fosters networks of power and influence. It's not just a case of what you know, but who you can get to know. And when it comes to the rich list, Cranbrook is at the top of the class. 3 former students who fit the criteria on every count are James Packer, son of Kerry, media and gambling magnate; Rodney Adler, son of the late Larry Adler, founder of insurance company FAI; and Jody Rich, son of Stephen Rich, founder of travel group Travelland. Jody Rich is the co-founder of One.Tel.
We had Rodney Adler, whose name's been quite prominent of late. He and Jody Rich and James all knew each other through what's called the Cranbrook Circle. They all mixed in that Sydney eastern suburb social clique.
John Dury is from the Fairfax-owned Financial Review.
Through that friendship, I think Jody was able to convince James of what a great idea he had, and then James and Lachlan obviously saw a lot of each other, and that was and that drew those two together.
Throw in another chum, Lachlan Murdoch. He spent his schooling years overseas, but any friend of James Packer with the name Murdoch has an open invitation to the exclusive boys' club.
I think if you don't live here, you're just camping out.
These young movers and shakers are the key players in One.Tel, the telephone company that hit the wall, and a big slice of $1 billion is at stake. Packer and Murdoch are not the biggest losers. News Limited and Publishing and Broadcasting are publicly owned companies. Tens of thousands of Australian mums and dads, many having invested in superannuation funds backing the Packer-Murdoch names, are the people who will feel the pinch, and also people who directly invested into One.Tel.
Well, mums and dad shareholders are clearly the big losers. People who followed them into the stock, they don't have the billions of dollars behind them to compensate for losses like this.
Jody Rich was a hunted man today. His mansion was staked out, and the big fingers of James Packer and Lachlan Murdoch were being pointed directly at him. The word misled was becoming a cliche in the Murdoch press and on Packer television. But others wouldn't buy it.
They did achieve what they wanted to achieve, precisely. They got the share price from nothing to nothing. I mean, what more brilliant success do you want than that?
Jonah Nader is a finance expert and author.
What I care is that somewhere along the line, your grandmother and mine put their last little few cents of saving in it on the back of, wow, the brand, we've got Packer and Murdoch behind it. What better brand name can you want in a marketplace? And what's your grandma and mine going to do? They're going to be ripped off. That's what they're going to do.
There's no doubt the Packer and Murdoch names enticed investors to back One.Tel.
Yeah, definitely.
Why's that?
Well, I presume with the resources that they have, that they would research a company properly.
Very surprising that two so well-connected people could make the mistakes, but it just goes to show you that even the big boys can lose it, like the average punters.
Jody Rich and Brad Keeling have a lot to answer for, but young Packer and Murdoch also face scrutiny.
But they'd be liable to any claims that people might make against the company, and these would be claims that investors may have made on the basis of their involvement in the company or on the basis of a negligence claim. That's I must say, a big ask at this stage of the game, but potentially yes.
It's hard to imagine James and Lachlan's fathers will be impressed.
In the case of the Murdoch family, there's a bit of a question mark over who's going to replace Rupert, but Lachlan's seen as the favourite at the moment. And clearly people are going to sort of keep remembering this One.Tel disaster. And likewise, James was very much the new technology champion in his family, and his father was always a sceptic. And so he's obviously going to have to do a bit of talking with his father, I would think, to prove that new technology is actually the mainstream, as he says it.
The One.Tel story is a fascinating one. It entered the telecommunications market at a time of profound change. The government had committed to end Telstra's monopoly by opening up the market to new entrants. Mobile phone usage was growing rapidly, and customers were looking for cheaper phones and calls. One.Tel would prove to be one of the most aggressive of these new entrants. One.Tel, the 100% telephone company. Well, it offered mobile, local and long-distance calls and internet services, and grew rapidly from nothing to become one of Australia's top 30 companies. It was incredible. It had high-profile, sexy investors, attracted millions of customers with its low-price products and services, and built up an instantly recognisable brand, the Dude. So why did it fail? The idea of One.Tel's co-founders, Jody Rich and Brad Keeling, was that they should enter this rapidly expanding telecommunications market as a reseller of Optus's services. For Optus, Telstra's main rival, the attractions were obvious. It had spent billions of dollars building a network, and what it desperately needed was customers. Here were a couple of guys offering to target young people, tradesmen, small businesses and sports clubs, a totally different market to the one Optus had been targeting. One.Tel launched in May 1995. They promised their customers low rates, simple tariffs and one bill for their phone services. They had a clever billing system, a flat management structure, a catchy jingle and the Dude, who proved that getting a phone with One.Tel was easy. They had also negotiated an amazing deal in which Optus would pay One.Tel $120 cash every time it activated a SIM card. One.Tel grew rapidly. It couldn't sign up customers fast enough. In only 5 months, it had passed the first year's target of 16,000 subscribers. Within 10 months, there were 50,000 customers on the One.Tel books. Sales for the first year were $65 million, with a $3 million before-tax profit. In year 2, Optus negotiated to severely reduce the $120 cash payment system, but One.Tel still managed sales of close to $150 million and a before-tax profit of $7.5 million. In 1997, One.Tel introduced international and long-distance services to its portfolio and floated on the stock exchange at $2 a share, valuing the company at $208 million. Things were going so well, it was decided to expand overseas. And in January 1998, One.Tel launched a global strategy to move into Europe and the United States. The Dude was certainly beginning to get around. Revenues were still increasing, and in August 1998, One.Tel trumpeted a profit of $9 million before tax. But One.Tel took a fundamental change of direction in September 1998. It decided that it wanted to set up and have control of its own network, of its own destiny. And this meant acquiring expensive spectrum licenses. From this point on, its investors would need to dig deep. Having successfully bid $9.5 million for mobile spectrum in the major Australian cities, One.Tel hit its first major snag: no cash to pay for it. It was clear to Jody Rich that he'd need access to investors with huge financial resources in order to fund his growing ambitions for One.Tel. Meetings with two of Australia's media giants, News Limited and PBL, led to them agreeing to put $430 million into One.Tel immediately and a further $280 million in the future in exchange for 40% of the shares. The share price began to rocket. The 100,000th overseas customer was signed up in May 99. A $9.8 million profit was reported at the year end, and an opportunity to enter the local call market appeared. Management also decided to bid for more Australian and European spectrum licences and build more networks. The shares again soared. One.Tel rocketed to a market capitalisation of $3.8 billion. So how come in 2001, a mere 18 months later, the company was declared bankrupt? It takes confidence and optimism to do it. When combined with innovation and persistence, the sky's the limit. However, if you push the boundaries too far, take too many risks and fail to do the correct checks, things can turn ugly and fast. And that's what happened to One.Tel, a start-up telecommunications company which dared to challenge the established giants. The company flew hard, fast and high and took two famous media magnates along for the ride. But overconfidence and a lack of focus on business basics, including their accounting, saw One.Tel crash back to earth.